If you are listening to this, then I am making a prayer to Hanuman that you deepen your sense of purpose, knowledge, and find yourself more empowered through me as a medium on the other side of this video. I am going to share my personal life experience of finding purpose, knowledge, and power with the blessings of my Guru and Hanuman. I was done living the typical 9 to 5 lifestyle and playing the roles that society had expected of me. Since I joined school, I was told that I was not good enough, and to be good enough I had to obey and do as I am told to do. I was angry at the world for this mess of a life that I had created for myself using this belief system. I took a sick leave on a rainy day and I stormed out of my home the previous evening without saying a word to anyone. I was headed to the forest in the Sahyadris. I was desperate to be free from this artificial prison that I had been living in, and I needed to know if there is something beyond this monotonous and uninteresting existence that I had been experiencing for over 20 years of schooling and work. I had grown up on stories of great historical and mythological figures who were larger than life and stronger than elephants, that ushered a very advanced, a peaceful and intelligent civilization of great yodhas, vidwans, gurus, rajas and senapatis. I used to visit forts that have stood for centuries, built by the Marathas in extremely difficult terrains. Places where today's average human doesn't dare dream to go. Ancient temples where mystical energies were at play non-stop, where an average person goes only to ask for blessings. In places like this, the last thing one could expect is exhibits of fine engineering and craftsmanship skills, divine structures and monuments that have stood the test of time and weather and have sustained it, communicating a legacy far beyond the present day reality that us urbanized humans have created for ourselves. And I used to snap out of all of this, thinking of my tiny existence as a jobber who belonged elsewhere, somewhere else in time. Wearing well-ironed formal clothes, black polished shoes to school every day, having a navy haircut and necktie, sitting in one place for hours and hours and days, dragging myself day and night from the bench to my bed. This left me utterly confused and angry at others for not being able to lead me, thinking this will end someday and I'll be able to understand this world better, not knowing that I'll be expected to do the same things over and over till the day I die. Going to such places reminded me that there is something real beyond my wildest imagination. And I used to ask myself, what kind of strength do these people have? What kind of creative powers their minds could wield to design and construct something extraordinary like this? But I never came across any person who represented this enigmatic past, be it physically, mentally, or spiritually, not even remotely. I was angry at my parents, teachers, elders, as none of them knew anything about it to guide me. Their stories were all about surviving an unforgiving world by getting good education and good employment. Something deep down inside me didn't let me solidify this into a lifelong belief, but I was fed up with filling the role that society had shoved down my throat. So much so that I was willing to put everything at risk. So I hiked for 2 hours from where the bus dropped me, and I reached my uncle's farmhouse and stayed there overnight. The farmhouse was at the border of a dense forest overlooking the huge wall of mountains of the Western Ghats. I used to like going there as a sanctuary, away from the entire world, to find some respite and spark. Since my school days, usually there is nobody there except for a caretaker, Suresh, who cooked some food for me, and then we had a quarter of Old Monk rum before calling it a night. I had graduated to being a rum drinker after a decade of trying everything else on the list, and after a short sleep, I woke up early, freshened up, and started my trek into the forest. It had rained non-stop for the last 4 days. Suresh was warning me repeatedly not to go, as there were incidents of tree falls and rock slides and landslides along the ghats. I could hear him, but I refused to listen. I wanted myself to be at the mercy of nature. I desperately needed to feel something beyond the ordinary, otherwise I would never be able to find and create a magical reality that I always wanted to see around me. And half an hour into the trek, I had already started trudging heavily, partially because my body was recovering from 7 years of smoking and drinking and other kinds of addictions, mainly because I was lost in my head, in my past memories, even when I was surrounded by untouched beauty of nature. I was feeling ashamed and humiliated. After resisting for many years, I had caved into the pressure. I had morphed my identity according to the expectations of society. I was always a rebel against the order in my school, colleges, university and offices I had inhabited. They wanted me to be a quiet, obedient school child. They wanted me to be an ideal son who cracks exams and gets a secure job. They wanted me to be a pushover and docile friend who can be happy taking insults and drug myself out of my senses. They wanted me to be a role player in my sports team. They wanted me to be a senseless workaholic employee. They wanted me to be an emotional punching bag in my relationships. I kept finding myself switching from one miserable social contract to another. And after failing as a rebel against society and getting defeated over and over again, I had decided to rebel against nature herself. So it started pouring buckets and the visibility had significantly decreased as I entered the upper reaches of the forest, and it had started getting denser and denser. I reached a point where the trail gets lost on the rocks. Without even noticing, I happened to take the wrong trail. I came to know that this was a cattle trail in my next visit there, and humans don't walk on this. And after a few minutes on the trail, I realized I was lost. My bag and everything inside it was fully drenched, including my phone. The clouds had covered everything and the visibility was very low. I couldn't see beyond a few feet away. Mosquitoes were swarming around me, biting me endlessly and making me mad. I was slipping and clawing out twigs and shrubs while trying to walk on the muddy slopes, and my raincoat was shredded by the thorns and the branches that I had walked through. This heavy downpour wasn't just stopping. I was trying with my life to find my way out of this horrible situation, and each time I would pick up a new direction, it would take me to the edge of the cliff and back again into the same place where I was a few minutes ago. I was going in circles. My body was flooded with stress hormones to try and make me survive without feeling the pain or tiredness from this desperate attempt of survival. After 3 hours of relentless struggle to find the way out of the forest, I gave up and sat down on a rock. I collected some rainwater that was dripping off the leaves and I drank it. I started thinking about all the trekking and survival expertise that I had gained to find my way back from forests during my geology field training and my experience as working as a trek guide. And I was surprised that this turn of events could happen. I could have never imagined this situation. All the knowledge, training, and skills that I had confidence on couldn't help me find a way out of this place. It was a symbolic representation of where I had found myself in life. It was at this moment I gave up struggling and I found a moment of calm. All the loud noises in my head just faded away, and I could only hear a sharp buzzing sound as I went fully blank. At that moment, I had stopped feeling sorry for myself. I surrendered my fate to nature's mercy, and I felt a bit of humility. I thought if I make it out alive, that'll be great. And if I don't, I'll accept whatever outcome that would come my way. I was ready to die, but I won't struggle anymore. I sat down and I started sipping the water. A strong gush of wind came up the valley and it cleared all the clouds and the rains had stopped. In front of me, I could see a fort on the mountain, kilometers away, shaped like a Shivlinga, which had a saffron flag fluttering over it with full vigor. And suddenly I heard the sound of a thunderous rumble crack open the space around me, as if it was coming from deep inside the sky and the earth at the same time. I had goosebumps all over my body. I started crying, not in a loss, but in relief and some kind of bliss. I could finally see. I received what I had asked for. This clarity was a blessing from the divine to break apart from my ordinariness and delve into a reality flowing much deeper. A larger divine presence had been communicated at the cusp of life and death. I prayed at that moment to show me the path whenever I was lost, and I promised that I will follow it blindly. After years of being morphed into an atheistic identity, I had found divinity. I told this story to my friends and family. They listened, but they thought I was on the edge of losing my shit, so they ignored it. So I don't blame them because of my reputation back then. Even I wouldn't have believed me. My suffering sped up quickly after that. After this incident, I found it hard to give up my atheistic thoughts and beliefs, but I had surrendered. By the time I was back on the job, I had lost a lot of my health and vitality to being addicted to the junk of an urban lifestyle. One day while working in the field, a mosquito bite led me to develop a severe dengue infection that had me hospitalized for 14 days. They had me on strong antibiotics and bag of platelets to keep me alive. I was barely eating and I had a loss of appetite. And taking a dump was extremely painful as my insides were severely dehydrated and hurting. Even then, as I was drifting in and out of consciousness in a very fragile body, I was feeling an existence of something much deeper, like a white light, praying to Shiva to allow this suffering to get over quickly. Somehow, even though I had lost a considerable amount of health, I was able to leave the hospital on my own 2 feet. But this hospitalization had blown severe holes in my already weakened body and had developed something called as a leaky gut, followed by an autoimmune skin condition which the doctors couldn't identify. Shortly after this, I met a friend of mine. After over a year, I saw him, Ronit, who had been through a similar journey in life like mine, living his whole life questioning the society that we live in and suffering in his youth from confusion, misdirection, and wrong guidance and addictions of his own. To my surprise, I could see significant improvements in his health, mainly in his mental sharpness and a sense of confidence that I didn't remember him having before. He told me he was learning some martial art from some guru. and he introduced me to Guru Pashupati. The Ronit I knew was a very shy, underconfident and introverted person. He said just after a few months of training, he had completely reformed himself, completely unrecognizable to me. I had never seen something like this before. It felt magical. His aura and his presence had altered completely. One day Ronit told me about a martial art workshop that Guru Pashupati was conducting in Pune. It's my hometown. And I was excited and I registered right away. And that's where I met him for the first time after spending a few months going through his videos on YouTube and practicing some techniques. I was impressed with his intense depth of knowledge, and I hadn't seen anyone so well educated in so many subject matters of health, mind, martial art, yoga, tantra, marketing, science, supernatural, culture, and our divine history. I realized I could never educate myself with formal degrees to match his levels. When I met him, he was shorter than I had thought he would be after seeing him in his videos. Me being 6.5 feet tall, I guess most people seem short. Throughout the session, he radiated and embodied an aura of mysticism and esoteric powers. The class started as a part of demonstration. He asked me to start attacking him with full intention and force. As I leaned forward to attack him, in a flash he had flattened me on my back and landed 15 light punches within 3 seconds. I was dazed at what just happened, but he gently guided me up, tapping me on my back for trying. That was a completely different feedback from what I was familiar with after failing at something so miserably. Later he told me of his journey to the Himalayas, his 18 months living with his Guruji, Mahavatar Babaji, and mastering weaponry like sword fighting, archery, and the mind and body itself from the immortal masters of yoga, warfare and martial arts. I was left enthralled. He also taught me how to move into deeper states in my mind that allowed healing, drive, creativity and calm. Back then I was trying several meditation apps and videos from the Sadgurus and the Oshos on YouTube, and everything fell short of what I had gathered from him in just one encounter. While we were doing relaxation exercises at the end of the class, I could sense it again, the surreal transcendence into a different reality in the mind, and then experiencing it translate into my body and my immediate surroundings. This was nothing short of magical. He said, as inside, so outside. What you can sense and feel in your mind gets reflected as what you sense in your environment. It made me forget about my skin rashes, my limitations of health, skill, character and vitality, and it helped me to connect to something within me that was beyond my ordinary life problems. This divine feeling I experienced after putting my life at risk in the trek, I was able to experience it once again, this time without risking my life and going through hell. And that's when I asked if he could take me under his wing and train me. He happily agreed. What they say is true. I realize it now. Shiva does come in the form of a guru. Anyway, after I started training, I realized I couldn't just keep going and doing the same old things and being the same old person and expect my life to be extraordinary and full of mysticism. But I was afraid what would happen if I quit my job and started something that I believed in. How will others react to it? And how would I be able to sustain it without any skills of making a cash flow and building up the brickworks of running something that I really believed in? And what about the experience that's needed for all of this? Will it actually work? Or will I just move into another disappointment and nervous breakdown? After the fear left, I started asking myself, how can I transition from a life that I had spent years living indoors, getting bombarded by non-native EMF radiations from technological devices like the mobile tower on my building, the constant blue light exposure through screens and indoors and lights on the streets since I was a baby, and all the smoke and pollutants that I could find in my environment. Can it even be possible to live in accordance with nature like how our ancestors did? After getting a good taste of the mystical realm, I still had many doubts that started creeping in, that led me to question if it was actually real or a very well fabricated lie. If it was real, why don't I see it every day? Why do I remain disconnected from this hidden existence that seemed to be so prevalent in our long lost heritage? This was fueled more by doubts from others, mainly my parents, teachers, friends, relatives, colleagues, who I tried sharing my experiences with. But then I used to snap out of it thinking, because of these doubts, I didn't act and live as I was meant to. I kept on doing the same meaningless job where I was either surveying in the sun the whole day, or cleaning sewage pumps and fixing them, or peddling some unmentionable substances for my friends as a side hustle, having empty sex after getting drunk with my ex-girlfriend. When my ex-girlfriend was in town, and roaming around the entire city the whole night aimlessly, living reluctantly with my parents who wanted me out of their house since I was a kid. I was doing a lot of smoking, partying, watching porn, drinking and sleeping with women I didn't even like. I kept staring at screens and spending late nights staying up in an environment that was killing me and every bit of me day by day. But I kept on doing it, even when my body was revolting in the form of disease. Amid all this resistance, I was trying more extreme ways of feeling the magic. On Mahashivratri, I had just too much bhang, and I smoked up one whole month's quota in just a few hours. Eventually, I passed out and I woke up after 2 days, and nothing had changed. I had hoped for some kind of a divine encounter, but nothing. I mustered up some courage and I told this to my guru. He said to completely stop all such stuff. All this while I had seen yogis and great people do things like this. He said, yogis are not addicts. You have seen yogis smoke up, but can you do any other thing that these yogis can do? Please give up this ego. First become a yogi. When I heard this, I had no hesitation in quitting my addictions and this kind of reckless behavior. I had a clear desire and outcome in my mind that being a yogi is how you start to access such powers. I started training regularly without getting distracted. It was my only way out of a life that I had dreaded. I felt something larger was at play, something I wanted since my childhood, and it wanted me back. I could feel it possible now. What led me to overcome my doubts was thinking how powerful entities and forces that had been having my back since my childhood would just let me go. How can I think that the temporary problems in my life can get bigger than the long existence of these divine immortal forces that have existed since the dawn of time? After a year of putting hard work in my training, inside and outside, taking up and quitting on several jobs, from standing up to opposing voices that threatened to stop me from pursuing this course of decision, coming from my parents, relatives, friends, peers, teachers, and all their insecurities, I was able to finally break apart from the mental restraints, and I started working on my purpose and dreams of learning the mystical practices of our long ancestral heritage and lineage. In 2019, I went and stayed with my guru in the Himalayas for 4 months. I had spent all my savings in the process and I ended up with a debt of over 2 lakh rupees just for learning. But I received the experience of a lifetime as I learned to control my emotions and make friends with the self instead of constantly getting defeated by my own worst self, my animal nature. There I learned the story of Hanuman, his journey of learning the mystical secrets of the universe from his guru, Surya Dev or the sun, and the becoming of him through his heroic and faithful deeds of service. I started teaching a secret version of Surya Namaskar that my guru had taught me, with the deeper enigmatic meaning to each and every step, and the attitude of learning that a practitioner needs to develop. I didn't know anything about making a living teaching yoga, neither did I know how to get people out of their darkness, but I tried with the knowledge from my guru after fixing some bits of my life. But I couldn't sustain it as I barely knew how to keep the classes running and get new students. And then the lockdown hit. Avoiding the sun for months and living indoors for months gave me a lot of body pain that I couldn't just practice. So I had to learn to fix it. Using some yogic massage techniques that I learned from my Guruji, I fixed my posture and I started getting a lot of sun, going outdoors without permission and eating clean food. A lot of my pain reduced and I started teaching these lessons. I was successful in helping around 40 people fix their postures and become free of chronic pain in just days. But after a while, I started attracting people who just wanted to fix their problems and not actually work on a better lifestyle. It discouraged me from teaching further and I stopped teaching. I felt like quitting and going back, finding a new job. But I reached out to Guruji for counsel. He said, failure is fuel for the fire of knowledge. Fail happily, learn and move on. Quitters are those who don't decide to move on. I was struggling to make money, so I took up a part-time job at my friend's company as a trek guide. I started guiding people who wanted to be in nature on treks. But little did I realize that these people just wanted to be in nature so that they could escape from their ugly lives and recreate the same ugly environment when they are out in nature instead of learning from it. I couldn't do much to change this behavior as it wasn't a part of my job description, and so I quit in a few months. I told this to Guruji. He told me to learn something else and be useful. I was learning to fix my chronic fatigue and skin issues. So he told me to learn about health and use the knowledge to help others fix their own health issues. Within a few months, I just simply gobbled up a lot of knowledge and I learned how to read blood reports. I read a lot of books and I started understanding by doing some courses in blood chemistry analysis, in nutrition and in functional lifestyle. Thinking that I will be finally of value in this world, I started analyzing people's blood reports, recommending yogic exercises, diet plans, supplements and lifestyle guidelines to patients and also people looking to get healthy. In the course of a year, I worked with over 300 reports, taught this skill to over 60 people and got better at helping people fix their shit. With this newfound confidence, I started learning traditional Indian warrior practices of Karlakatai and later followed by Hanuman Gada. I absorbed the lessons like a sponge from my Guruji, never missed a class and observed as many people started and left as to why some people were getting results and why others weren't. I was always amazed by the feats and achievements of warriors of our vast past and felt warriors were the ones who make it. When Guruji introduced me to the ancestral warrior practices of Hanuman Gada and Mudgar and Karlakatai, he told me that these are ancient weapons of war and protection that are as old as the most ancient people who have walked this planet. I developed an intuition that only an environment that builds warriors can get results in themselves and others. There have been several amazing stories in our history of brave warrior men and women, but I was disheartened to see the lack of it in our modern society. Everyone was either too consumed by selfish ambition to make it big and achieve a supposedly high position in society, or they were busy giving themselves away cheaply to others, drying themselves up, expecting someone will take care of them finally if they kept doing that. They used the knowledge of how to swing a club and work out more and more and more to achieve a promotion and look good in functions. Not to be better at being their best selves all the time, being of value and living life they respected and cherished. So they did the course and moved on to the next shiny thing that will give them a big high out of it. Or they just dropped out and settled for mediocrity, become more and more miserable and die and get recycled by nature. Guruji told me why it's not working. He said people who are coming are not grateful and hungry. And if they don't actively recycle their problems recycle them. Figuratively, people are unable to filter and process their terrible relationships, work life, sexual drive and status that comes along with it in their life. Literally, their bodies are unable to make the enzymes and hormones that couple and break down the toxins into non-toxic waste material. Their bodies are thoroughly dehydrated because of the urban lifestyle, cycles being out of sync and living surrounded by toxins of all kinds in the air, water, sound, EMFs, lights, and information that they're picking up around them. As a result of the inability to get real life achievement that they want, they misuse their power for a cheaper and easier reward and kill themselves and others with this chase. To get out of this mess, I myself had to do a lot of training and a lot more training to go through a lot of twists and turns in life to adapt to recycling my shit faster than it recycles me. In times I lost hope in all of it, but I found inspiration in Guruji and what all shit he had to help me and thousands of others like me in the process, while bearing my complaints about why my life is not working out. The reason I was able to outlast these problems where so many others failed was because I kept dropping the idea that I know more than my guru and teachers, even though I had drunk a lot of Thames waters. But many of my students were unable to give up this idea and they fell prey to that conditioning. I realized over time it's not about knowing, but about having faith that you'll get the right knowledge at the right time. And it's about becoming worthy of it and asking the right questions and building yourself to be worthy of divine presence in your life and working your way to it by learning to solve life's problems. After years of hard work and avoiding life-threatening distractions of health fads, conflicting spiritual ideas, thirst traps, and empty fantasies of relationships and soulmates, I was able to persist and find a way. When I look back, I see the divine Hanuman Gada breaking and destroying all of these obstacles to being good in life. When I shared this dream about the Gada with Guruji, he taught me some things about the Gada. He said the Gadas that we make in Trilok Akhada, the Akhada where my Guru and his tribe belong to, are special weapons energized with divine power, designed to awaken subtle qualities like courage, valor, glory and heroism by connecting with Hanuman and the Devas and Devis who Hanuman protects and worships. And you dedicate yourself to using your warriorhood and your service mindset as a weapon that brings an end to the stupidity of the social itihasa and helps you connect to the divine Itihasa of Hanuman. It's not just a training equipment like a dumb mace bell or a club bell. It's a battle weapon that was used against multiple enemies over yugas and yugas. He also told me that the Gada brings out the divine powers in the wielder, that it amplifies the energies and aura and makes you strong, young, sharp, and unstoppable. Only when practiced under careful guidance of the acharyas and the gurus of our akhada. All this was happening. I was also busy firefighting in a relationship. I had broken off with this woman who I tried to help. I had realized she was only interested in taking my help to try and get me to marry her. And I was being helpless just because of having abstained from cheap sex and drugs for over 5 years. In this process, I couldn't focus on my work, my training. I used to spend a lot of my time in my room trying to reflect on what was happening. I got into a brutal bike accident where I dislocated my foot. All this time while breaking and making up with this woman over and over again. I used to spend the day regretting my decisions and the night overworking and overstressing and overstimulating myself. I started sleeping at 4 a.m. and waking up at 11. And this had become my lifestyle. I couldn't recognize myself and what I was doing. I lost business of lakhs of rupees and 1 year in trying to rebuild my broken reputation. The project of Hanuman Gada was put on the shelf while I was busy being a slave and deteriorating rapidly. When I couldn't bear the misery anymore, I received some knowledge about Siddha Yoga and what are the powers of a Siddha. Using this knowledge, I was able to rebuild my character and past that was better and stronger. After ending a year-long drama that never seemed to stop, my guru finally thought me worthy. So he initiated me into this practice as an acharya, a teacher, and gave me a set of powerful mantras to use along with the practice. He with the most kindness instructed me to go out in nature and follow the Guru Maryadas. I learned that this sadhana when done in natural environments creates vibrations that immediately opens doorways into connecting with the mystical entities that bless you with higher abilities and perspectives. He explained how the Gada is a powerful linga that changes the energy fields of the room and of those who use and master them, and how the wielder transforms himself or herself from their smallness into occupying larger spaces and creating a powerful protective presence. He also told me secrets about how Hanuman using his siddhis transformed from a child who couldn't estimate his powers and caused harm because of not knowing how to control them, and then got cursed by rishis and devas that he will forget his powers until he is reminded of them with encouragement, into a fierce, unstoppable Vanara with unmatched strength, valor and glory, and the humblest of all, in service of his God and Guru, Sri Ram. He told me this was my only ticket out of the indoor lifestyle that I had been trying so hard to outdo, and to reconnect with the world around me better, just like our divine ancestors did that helped them evolve. Armed with all these lessons and guidance from Guruji, my body and mind transformed as the Gada transformed my muscular, organ and nervous systems to take the attacks of urbanization without breaking. Without getting into conflicts and entanglement with others, all the useless roles and relations and circumstances that I was caught in started falling away from me one by one. I developed abilities to understand and communicate with animals, process subtle signals from people to know their intentions better, gain trust and dependability from people I care about, and also lead some people to experience their own magical powers. Initially, there was a lot of cleansing that happened as my body was adjusting, and that made me halt my practice every now and then. On some days, it was really bad, where I would fall into cycles of eating junk food or sweets, On other days, it was extreme irritation and not being able to stop it and not being able to sleep. The skin issues I had developed used to create inflammation in my brain and make me fatigued and cause nightmares and delirium, where I would constantly keep imagining the worst happening to me in my future. But nothing was powerful enough to derail my focus on learning and getting good at the art. I started receiving a host of benefits using this powerful enigmatic reality I was a part of. I started getting blessings and lessons from Hanuman himself in my dreams. Solutions to untangle the minds of my students. Boons and abilities that opened up a new and empowering reality that I was more and more in control of. I regained my fitness to be able to trek on mountains, swim in lakes and oceans, spend nights out connecting in nature away from urban captivity, and travel to places of ancient Indian heritage and observe and absorb the information that our ancestors had to offer. I put on good muscle and cut down unwanted body fat and swelling. I was able to do hard training with ease of mind and body. Some really hard movements a giant like me hardly attempts. From an introverted child, from an introverted addict with severe social anxiety in 2017, I was able to close deal of up to 3 crores in the last 3 years. I also learned a host of different skills, including where I taught ancient Indian martial arts and movements to over 2,500 people, including corporate leaders, IAS officers, doctors, therapists, military commandos, etc., to get rid of their limiting atheistic identities and beliefs and empower them with lessons from immortals. I learned to find a tribe of people who care about me and become a powerful workforce in a startup environment where over 95% of people are unsuccessful and quit. Today, I have around 80 people learning under my guidance to break free from their urban captivity and social itihasa with the blessings of Guruji. He told me all this while you had a wavering commitment and doubts in your workplace, relationships, and even your future because you hadn't fully committed yourself to the higher cause and a magnificent reality that was possible. This created an unreliable self-image that you yourself couldn't trust, and that's why you never achieved what you set out to achieve. Just like you, there are millions of people who are exploring the divine heritage of a great past, who find themselves trapped endlessly, helplessly in their urban captivity, where the ways of modern life are killing them. Just where you found yourself a few years back. You need to invite them on their life-expanding journey with you and experience a world rich with stories of greatness that their heart sinks in. Armed with these stories, they will be able to transform their identity and take on the mountain of responsibility for the entire world of all the future generations. I was left utterly inspired. He not only saw this vision reflecting in the depths of my subconscious and past experiences, but he also put great faith in me with this responsibility, which is far, far greater than I ever thought myself capable of. He gave me the gift of Hanuman's grace. So, if you identify as a devotee, one who has deep faith in the divinity, that it is taking care of you, a warrior, someone who is committed to protect and serve others they care about, protect their energy and not waste it in empty pursuits, a sincere disciple who is interested in learning, in taking responsibility for fixing your shit and doing hard things even if you don't like it, but you need to do. If you're fearless, which is not afraid of facing consequences when you decide to live a certain way, you're hungry to be guided by divine forces and gurus of our akhada to fulfill your true potential. If you're grateful for all the knowledge that we have been posting on our YouTube channel Hanuman Gada and all the resources of Hanuman that we have been providing and the knowledge of breaking free from your urban captivity that we have been sharing, and you want to start a new life adventure by learning to value and follow the laws and boundaries of nature and our gurus. Only if you identify yourself with the above, I want to encourage you to learn Hanuman Sadhana. I've already interviewed over 250 people, many of them who went on to become our students. Click on the link below this video that will take you to our website where Guruji and I discuss the course purpose, structure, details and offer. If you haven't yet subscribed to our YouTube channel Hanuman Gada, do so before by clicking on the subscribe button and then enabling notifications to get notified whenever the new videos are out. If you're on Instagram, make sure to follow me. I've shared my socials below as well. Leave a comment what you could learn from my journey. It will help all of us reflect on ourselves and be present to each other. All the best. Jai Shri Ram, Jai Hanuman.